Great. Welcome, everyone. We will be starting in a minute just to see that everyone gets seated. Really glad to be here, glad to see you. I guess you're interested in marketing as well, as I am, and technology, and that is what we're going to talk about today. Let's see if everyone get their seats. Great, welcome. I think we can get started. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Kristina Juhlin. I'm from Accenture Songs, and I'm going to talk about my favorite topic, the future of marketing. Song is a part of Accenture. We are an agency helping clients, building brands, content production. We help them with marketing activation, optimization, etc. So we have a broad span. My role at Accenture Songs is that I'm global lead, Gen AI for marketing. That means that I'm working both internally at Accenture Songs, how we're delivering services to our clients with the help and use of Gen AI, but also work as a consultant to our clients, how to help them in their marketing transformation. So even though I will be talking about Gen AI, I think my main focus is actually where it's the evolution of marketing, but with Gen AI as the foundation. So you could say, or some say, that Gen AI is just a trend. But when it comes to marketing, we're really seeing that it's revolutionizing the way we think, do, operate in marketing. So when I started in my career, that was 20 plus years ago, in digital marketing. And at that point, you might know it was linear TV and print that was the big thing. Then we were talking about, it was the IT bubble and digital media. But then suddenly the bubble burst, and I was like, yeah, maybe digital, it's a fly, it will go away. We will still continue linear TV. And this is actually, we're at the same point right now, you might say, because we're just on the top of the hype of Gen AI right now, because we're seeing this extraordinary stuff, but now we're starting to think, but does it really work? Can I really use it? Can I use this ad commercially or not? And why does that man or woman have 6 fingers? So we're a bit, aroused what was happening, but now, so I think we're at the same hype. We're just about the hype. And what's interesting then and now is that you always tend to overestimate in short term, because we believe that Gen AI will revolutionize everything now. And when it doesn't, we get disappointed and say, well, maybe later, maybe it's not that interesting for now. But what we tend to do is underestimate in long term. What will happen in 3 to 4 years from now? And this was exactly what we didn't think about with digital at that point, because a lot of people, we'll see about that, right? And then many companies, as you know, they couldn't survive because they didn't do their digital transformation. So what's interesting now and what I'm talking about is not what will happen in 3 to 6 months. We're talking about 2 to 3 years. But it will have a great impact on every single part of the marketing value chain. That is when you're thinking about branding creative and how you do your marketing strategy and planning. It will have an impact on the content production, versioning, transcreation, auto tagging, and of course the activation, regardless if it's CRM, campaigns, emails, paid media. We'll see quite a big impact throughout the value chain in different processes. And I will later on show what we mean with that, because that's a big study that we did. But what the point is that I want to say that it takes quite a lot of time, because at first, where do I start? If we have all of this in our organization, where should I start? What does that mean? And it will take time, because just implementing Gen AI, you have to have your MarTech and AdTech in place. You have to have your data structured. You have to be compliant. You have to have internal policies and guidelines how to use Gen AI and how to prompt or whatever, and what partners should we have. So it takes time. And that's why it's so important that what we're seeing is that businesses or agencies or consultancies as us have to start, because the actual wave won't come until a year from now. But it takes a long time to make that transition. And we also have to work with our own people to start envisioning, this is how I do perform my job today. And that is not happening from one day to another. And that's why we're seeing that companies that has already started will have a vast competitive advantage in the market, regardless in what business you're in. Again, if you're an advertiser, if you're a consultancy or an agency. So there are main 4 areas we see huge impact. The first of them I want to mention is the enhanced insights and intelligence. Most of people are talking about content today. And as you know, Midjourney, we can do this, great pictures, you can iterate and concepting. But I really believe that the insights part, that will have a great impact on organizations moving forward. Starting to use GenAI as an intelligence in your marketing operations for decision making, to ensure that you have the vast information that you can have to make those bold decisions in making new marketing strategies, new brand, creative idea, etc. So I believe even though we're not seeing that trending right now, I really would bet my money that's a really interesting area that we will be moving into. The other part is unlock creativity. So GenAI won't bring that brilliant idea. And this is where I see a lot of people are starting to get a bit disappointed with GenAI. Well, it didn't give me a good idea or good conceptual concept. No, of course not. It's GenAI. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have emotions. It won't be able to do that for you. But if you have all this information, if you have all this market data and you have audience data and you have performance data from your own company, then you can start iterate yourself with your human intelligence and then do concepting together and iterate using a generative AI tool. And this is where it's interesting. It can do drawings for you, outlining. It can do hundreds of different concepts that you then can take your ad agency or in-house agency. And this is where we see the unlocked creativity to work together as a co-pilot with generative AI. The content piece, that's the biggest piece. That's the revolution right now. And this is also where we see the greatest impacts on talents right now when it's come to the manual human labor of versioning of ad formats. Again, translation, all the different things that you want to do with your content, but that is repetitive tasks. We really see an impact on how different workforces will change over time in that space, and that's probably the most trending. And then the last one, a personalized experience, that will be in regards of activation, email, paid media. But what's interesting with the ad tech and ad technology in that space, so for all of you that works with paid media and ECRM, etc., you already know that those technologies already have AI since like 10 years back. So that's not really new. You're already on that curve, understanding how AI can help and optimize 24/7. So that's why we don't see it's not as revolutionizing when it comes to activation, because Salesforce, Adobe, Google have already a lot of interesting AI in their tools. But of course, there will be advancements. Everyone that talk about, how this presentation needs to bring some data, right, to prove their point. So you probably heard about greenwashing. You use data because you want your company to look good. So now the latest is that you do AI washing. You bring, nice data that, telling that you will make these major improvements in your company and you will save so much money. So I thought, why not bring really old data? So this is a report from 2014. It was actually done. And it was done from something called Stiftelsen för strategisk forskning, as it's called in Swedish. So what they did 10 years ago, they did a research to understand how automation will impact different roles. And had a percentage. Within 20 years, the probability that this role will be automated, AI, we won't need that role anymore. But to the story, it will be new roles, right? So, but what we're looking now is what kind of roles that we believe can be automized. So when it looked at marketeers, they thought that 46% could be automized. And what's interesting is that the same studies that we're doing today, and we're doing in our company as well, are showing the same numbers. So even though I think it's interesting to compare when working with this 10 years ago and looking at doing the same studies just to get some validity, what they thought then and what we see now. So that means of everyone working with marketing, we'll see that 46% of the tasks probably will be automized. A lot of those tasks has already been that. So some of you that may work with paid media, for example, once upon a time, we called the salesperson and said, we would like to have an ad on Google or Aftonbladet or whatever. That's made by programmatic, so that's automized today. So there's already things happening. But I think it's interesting that I also wanted to show you a broader view of actually the result, because 10 years ago, it was the role that would be most automized of all of the different roles we have was actually photo models. 10 years ago, I thought, how? I couldn't imagine. How can photo model be replaced by data and digitalization? I couldn't believe it at that point. But today I can. And I think that is so fascinating. And that tells a lot by ourselves. What we're seeing today is what we believe is reality, right? But I thought this was crazy 10 years ago. What is then crazy, 10 years ahead? I think that's super interesting. So today, that could probably be it. We will use Gen AI that will replace photo modeling. We will probably have influencers and other stuff, so it won't go away, of course, totally. But most of, generic images, it could be helped. But if you look at the bottom, so what are the most safe words? I thought priest was really nice. So if someone here is choosing between photo model or priest, then you should probably go to choose priest to secure your work. But as I said, it's not about being only replaced by Gen AI, because we see there's a vast need of humans. As you probably know, Gen AI doesn't have human emotions. It doesn't understand ethics and morals. It doesn't understand cultural nuances. And for you that listened to the speaker before, it's not inclusive. So there's so many problems with the outcome that we can't move the work to a Gen AI machine. It will replace us. We will just get new roles. And that new roles is like human reviewers. So I would bet my money that in the future CVs, I think it's two very important traits to have is good judgment, because you have to understand what is good, what is not good. Is this ethically correct? Is this, within the market that I am in, is this good? The other one is good taste. Because with Gen AI, you probably see there's so many variations, so much to choose from. So, and suddenly you're now aroused with all of these different options that you have. So good judgment and good taste, I believe, is really good to have. But so again, so not saying that we will be replaced at all, but there will be new roles instead. That is what we're seeing and what's interesting and looking future ahead. Since I'm working with marketing, I also just wanted to have a double click on marketing organizations and the impact of that and what to expect. What should I think of my company? What should I ask for my boss? What are the questions that we're seeing? So since I have a global role, I talk with global brands, helping them in their marketing transformation, where to be in 2 to 3 years. Even though I'm coming with a business card of Gen AI marketing, 9 out of 10 times, the conversation ends up in the marketing operation and centralization. So today we're seeing, and especially Nordic brands that are based in the Nordics, usually have a decentralized organization, you would say, that each market has their own marketing organization, own agencies, etc. This is really what's happening with Gen AI is now that awakening to understand, if I'm going to implement Gen AI in my organization, why aren't I doing it at a global scale? If I'm looking for the efficiency that I expect from Gen AI, it won't become efficient enough just to do it in one market. I have to look, the back office work, how can I have that automized and how can I have that centrally or by regionally? So that's have been an interesting journey for me as well, that starting from Gen AI and think of it as different assets, that we're now talking, how will the impact be on marketing organizations? as well. So that will be the first one that I'm seeing. The global harmonization and standardization is something that we really see and see clients are now aiming for, with the aim, again, of looking for cost efficiencies, but they also want to see quality of the work, that locals are following brand guidelines, etc. So there's so many things within that they're looking for. The other thing is enhancing collaboration among people, data and technology. We should have done that years ago, right? But still, we have the IT department, we have the marketing, we have the CRM and loyalty. GenAI, since it's really grounded in the ways of working, we really see the need of starting to work together. So that's a really important step moving forward in organizations, how to collaborate much more. And just to go on a bit quickly, the mindset of continuous learning, and as you know, we're changing, it goes so rapidly right now. So one of the worst GenAI things I saw was probably this morning, because this afternoon there will be something better. So even though I have my preferred vendors or partners right now, this might likely change. So we all need to start to be adapting and be more listening to the market and understanding where my work may change. I may be using another tool, but I think this is the new reality that we are in right now, that it will be continuous change. What more? I just want to mention before leaving this slide, responsible AI. I think the hype has been so shiny that we a bit forget about that. And that is so important before everyone in the company start using ChatGPT and start putting confidential company data, for example, or how you use. So that's why I think that is so important. That is also a big topic that we talk with our clients about to ensure that. And again, if you're listening to speakers earlier, I think she made a really good point about this. So that's something that we already have to have in a foundation before companies really are starting implementing GenAI into their operations and business. Okay, so now I wanted to go about what does this really mean and where do you actually start? So navigating the landscape for GenAI is quite massive. And we had similar lunarscapes, maps before, but that was with MadTech and MarTech, etc., and the broader IT. Now we're putting in generative AI. So it's really, really massive. Where do I start? How do I know what should be the core principles for a company to start choosing? So what we've been doing is looking into if we were starting to map out, categorize the marketing operations. And this is really on a top level, just to show the thinking of it. So looking into how will the different roles in a marketing organization thinking, or an agency as us, and how should we be using generative AI? So the first part is marketing strategy and planning. We really see, as I mentioned before, this is not using GenAI to do that for you, but to help leverage all the data that you already have. Again, marketing data, competitor data, it could be your performance data, etc. Trends within the products or services that you're owning. And with that use, actually, by then, could create the big idea after that and the marketing strategy and planning. And I guess with some of the available free tools, you can already start to iterate. But again, when you can upload your own data as well, and market data, then it becomes really, really interesting. From that, going into concepting, and there we see how content creation, how you can use GenAI as a part of that. And the last one is the marketing activation. And I wanted to show you even more details on that. So this is where we see different tools, how it can help in your organization. Where does it help? Just going back to the question, where should we start? I think looking at where you are today and to see where do you see are the most time-consuming in your organization? Where do you see that you're not effective? Where do you see that there are room for improvements? It could be either in a workload or where you see that you're just probably maybe spending too much money right now, or you don't have the outcome that you're looking for. So we've been working into the details to see these are the different elements where we see GenAI can help to support an organization, and also how we envision it to be if will look 2 to 3 years from now. This is how we envision the different parts can be automated with the use of GenAI. And it's pretty massive. It's a lot of different shores, but what is interesting also is to think about when you're engaging with new GenAI assets, it's not to start with 5 different vendors, because at the end of the day, you have to have everything connected, because you don't want to sit with 5, 8, 10 different GenAI tools with different logins that is not connected together, because then it will become inefficient instead. All the great idea we have that it will help our work, that will not happen. It will just be sitting in different systems and it will not really help you as much. That's why it's, learning to understand where to start. It's even more important to know where are you going and to create that North Star. So this is how we want to be operating in our organization. This is how it will look like, and then backtrack. So what we're recommending our clients to do when to start, so it's first building your North Star, but then also start with what you already have. And that is looking into the MarTech applications or systems and platforms that you have today already, whether it will be Adobe, whether it will be Salesforce, Google, etc. Because they have all a suite of GenAI products that is really interesting and also easier to implement than just going outside and just changing all the entire ways and your platforms. So starting with what you have makes a more easier transition to exploring generative AI. Then you have a lot of what we call accelerators. Because at the end of the day, as I mentioned, we want to ensure that they are all connected, that your different tools that you have. So you have businesses like us and others, of course, and I will show you a demo of that, how that looks, to connect everything so you have in one interface. It may sound a bit confusing, but in 4 minutes, we will look at the demo and you will see how that looks like. Using different LLMs to actually just have one interface and for one outcome. And that is really interesting. So that's the second part. How are you going to connect all the different technology and tools that you have? And then there's third party. That could be smaller startups that you're looking at. I think here is where you need to be a bit more cautious in regards of legal aspects, etc. Can we use them? What is the IP infringement, etc. So that's really important. And that's why I also say start with the big enterprise solutions that you have already and that you have a contract with, because then you're a bit more secure with that. So that's the way. Start carefully before going into the exploring mode and create that North Star. Where do you think that you will be or your organization will be in 2 to 3 years, and to build that roadmap where to go. I think that's one of the most important steps, because everywhere I see it, there's so many recommendations here now, but not thinking about where you actually want to be and the impact of your organization. So I wanted to show you a demo, something we called Machine Creative Studio. It's built on different LLMs, as you will see. But what we did, we call it a switchboard, you might say. So you can actually choose what LLM. So it will be Stable Diffusion. Would you like to work with Midjourney? You have all these different options depending on which one you prefer. And then you start iterating your ad. You're building your ad, adding text, translation. And the end output of it is to have an ad that is ready to go. In this case, it's for social media. And so while we're watching this film, I would just have a think about the different roles that would be needed if we did it manually, in a manual world, that is now done with the use of Gen AI.
Machine Creative Studio is a content creation platform that facilitates the creation of multimodal first draft content. This allows content teams to expertly build upon these initial drafts to product final optimal content. We want a campaign that establishes our company as the leading communications partner and also promote their family subscription. We have already created the territories and will now be moving on to asset creation. We can create blogs, GIFs, direct marketing channel content, and social media posts. The LLM models we have chosen are Midjourney for image and OpenAI for text. We will be creating an Instagram post. We will also give some additional information like the imagery description. The idea of a mom with 2 kids, looking at a tablet. The colors based on our brand guidelines. Then we come to the tone of voice for the messaging as well as the targeted customer segment. Now we come to our assets. Based on our prompts, 3 options for the image as well as the Instagram caption, along with hashtags, are generated. We now come to a very interesting feature. In case we want to adapt our asset for different locations as well as languages, we can go to the left and pick the relevant option. In this case, we want to localize our content for China. As seen, the images and content have been localized for China. The captions are now in Mandarin. We can further edit this asset by adding text to it. The text color and font can be changed as per our preference. Once we are done experimenting with the image and are happy with the results, we can create a mock-up to see how our post would look when actually posted on Instagram. We also can predict the performance of our creative with the help of the crisp visual attention heat map, as well as the visual attention opacity map. This allows for the identification of areas that will be most prominently observed within the initial fleeting moments of a glance. Once that is done, the mockup can be downloaded using the Export Asset button. Now we come back to the Asset workspace. The direct marketing channel option consists of WhatsApp, SMS, OBD script, and email generation options. We will be focusing on email. We can enter the message, customer segment, and offer details. We can also upload our brand logo and determine the length of the email. Lastly, the CTA. 3 options each are generated for the images as well as the text. The emails follow the framework provided previously and is formulated as per the customer segment provided. They clearly highlight the offer details, follow the tone of voice we wanted. After reading through all the options generated carefully, we can select the one that fascinates us the most. A preview can be created which will provide insight on how this email would look once it is ready to be sent out. In just a few minutes, we were able to create different assets for diverse channels for our campaign. This is the power of innovation and creativity combined.
So that's quite impressive, right? So imagine all the people will be needed. And what didn't show here was actually the work on the imaging, choosing the different imaging, changing backgrounds, changing the color of the clothes that they were wearing, etc. That was already made up or when starting to work iteration with the text, etc. So it's quite impressive what we can do with one tool, all the way from you just have product images or what you want to start with and the idea to actually have a ready to go content, and also you can have it all the translation. Again, you will still need a human review throughout the process, but it's really interesting how we now starting to imagine how the future will look like and the use of GenAI when we look at marketing and how that will change and evolve our operating models, but also agencies and everyone that is working with marketing all different levels. So that's quite impressive what we can do. And this is something, a tool that we already are available today, but it's connected again, as we can saw, Midjourney, ChatGPT, etc. So it's all based on what LLMs you would like to add to that. So that was the last that I wanted to share. Pretty intense half hour, right? This is a topic that I find really interesting. We do have time for questions. It would be interesting to see if anyone has something that you want to either share or question you want to ask? Great. Yes. Yes, I think that's a really important question. And then Gen AI is just not just impacting marketing, it's the entire enterprise. And as I talked in the beginning, I think it's creating a sense of urgency because that change takes so much time. And if you don't start now doing the groundwork, because when they finally realize it will take perhaps a year, and then all the competitors will be ahead. So I think it's rather a sense of urgency that you have to start to do that exploring, and they have to have people like you that are interested and engaged to get that responsibility to be helping to lead that conversation. So helping them talk about the sense of urgency, that's one. The other one is during the economic situation we have today, it's also interesting looking into cost efficiencies with Gen AI in some areas. Rather, if it doesn't have to be that you will reduce the number of people, but it could be the work that you do will be much more. You will have more content for your campaigns, so you will have better outcomes. So how can you improve both cost efficiencies, but how can you improve growth with the help of Gen AI? That usually helps with C-level to talk about numbers when you want to prove a case as well. Yes. Yes, and I can just confirm that this is how it looks in the most organizations today. Yeah. But that's a really good point. I don't know if you recognize. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So that is very relevant and important question. So you have to work with LLMs that have the rights, and from my knowledge, as of this minute, it could be, someone has something else. That Adobe right now, Adobe Firefly, they have a contract with Get Images. So those are probably one right now that we're working with that we see that has taken a higher responsibility. So that's one part. The other part, even though you have the rights for the images, is how you prompt the message. So if you say, I would like this ad to have a Jackson Pollock feeling of it, then suddenly you're out on deep water again. So what we saw here is that you're not allowed to do open prompting. You can say, I want the image to be more bolder, or I want it to be more, So that is also a way how you can start to, streamline the way, how you use Gen AI in your organization. So everyone is not going wild and crazy and doing, the infringement. So that's choosing the right partner, that is really important to know what you can do. So if you're using Midjourney today, you can't use those ads in a campaign today. And I think, from my knowledge, again, today, it could be someone has other information, but it seems like at the moment, Adobe Firefly is the one that has taken the most responsibility and had those kind of contract, for example. What do you mean with retainer? Oh, that's so interesting, because so there's two ways of the new business model for agencies. So one of them would be that the agency is working with this tool themselves, and then you should renegotiate with your agency, because now they're using their time differently, you might say. So that what usually happens that they will reduce number of FTEs, but then you have to add the cost for the technology. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be cheaper, but it will be that the output, you will have perhaps more ads, you will have more value. That's one. The other part is where clients would like to own these kind of tools themselves. And then that would not be a retainer. That will be something that you could look at buying or, building it yourself. Again, this is just an interface and accelerator on top of existing LLMs that is in the market. So there's two routes, and also the interest from clients. Buying as a service or buying the application. Yeah, good question. Yes, exactly. Yes. So in this particular case, because we were focusing on the copy editing piece. But yes, that's the output. So you can have the image in layers. What's interesting is that you went quite fast. So one of the features is eye tracking. So you saw a heat map. that's showing, that's predictive where the eye probably, the attention will be on the image and on the text. So the idea is that you have the image in layers. So at the end, the model can actually redo the image to get better predictive attention. So that's going into more of the details. But yes, that is the next step that we want to do to help create that. Just because that visibility is one important metric for brand campaigns, etc. Yes. 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 I love it. And you're so right. Yeah. Yes, that's really good topic because at the end of the day, all marketers will sit in the same tools. So, and they were probably prompting the same thing. So at the end of the day, it will look, the imaging will be the same. And that's why going back, you can't rely the big idea on generative AI. You can't rely that that will help you to create, a campaign that will stand out. That's why you need human intelligence to do that. You can use GenAI to make your vision real. That's how you use it, like a co-pilot that will make that vision for you. But the great idea or the feeling that you want the audience to feel, or how we want to be perceived, that has to come from the human intelligence. That will not get from the same technology tool that most of the marketers will use, since it's the same. So that's a really good point. So again, human review, human intelligence will be for sure needed. Good point. Yes. Exactly. Yes, exactly. That's to the point. But it's also that, and I think it will be harder actually. So in the marketing industry, it will be harder for junior new execs to come into the industry because those kind of chores will be automated, right? Everything repetitive tasks, again, versioning, and before when it comes to how we were buying media, that's getting more advanced. Everything is getting more advanced, both from a technical perspective, but also understanding media, understanding human behaviors, understanding how will our brand stand out. And especially going back, when you working with GenAI, there is always a risk, again, because they don't have that human intelligence, it doesn't understand ethics, it's not inclusive. So it's even more important that you as a marketeer have that understanding, because suddenly you have a really important role, and to have the governance over the advertising. And also, as we were talking, how do I stand out? How do I make my mark in this world now that more or less 46% of the work we're doing is getting automated? So yes, I would agree to do that. Yeah. Any last question? Yes. Yeah, I think that's so important now, because now it's starting to get available for everyone. That's why when you have to go back to have that guidelines and policies, who can use it and who cannot, I think that's really important. And the brand guideline, super important, because we don't want people to go crazy now that you have the tools that can help you go crazy and making really fun ads, or you can have hundreds of different versions, etc. So you have to go back to the company's values, the company's image, and brand guidelines, etc. I think that is super important, and it has to be really clear about mandate and responsibility into that organization to ensure, because otherwise, we will probably see, looking forward a year from now, see problems when people are using GenAI in a irresponsible way, for example, or perhaps you're publishing ads that you've done in Midjourney that doesn't have, it's copyright infringement. So likely we will see for those companies who's not taking that kind of responsibility and clarity within the organization. That was a really good question. Yes. That is such a good question. And okay, to be honest, I use, so we have the enterprise version of ChatGPT, and I ask for grammar. So when I'm writing a lot of, emails, and so then I say grammar, and then I just add the text, and then it most of the times give me a better suggestion or clarity, or So I think boring answer, but that's the way I use it. The most, I've been playing around with Midjourney, but you get tired after a while. I did this crazy Christmas card with crazy, but But it's more, and I think that's the way to use GenAI. How the boring stuff, or how can I make, text, easy, or how should I answer this? And I think that the boring stuff, that's really how you can make use of it in every day. Yeah. Great. Last question, or are we ready to go and get something to drink before next session? Great. Thank you so much. Great to be here.